Hello again. This is Rudy Giuliani with another edition of Rudy's Common Sense. I'm kind of in a state of shock, if I might tell you that, because for some time, as you know, I've been predicting we're on an express train to communism, socialism, Marxism. I think we may have gotten there, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to show you something. Well, this is a picture of our new Minister of Truth. Well, actually, she's the Minister of Disinformation, but it is like, and now we'll put up a picture of the Minister of Truth in George Orwell's novel, 1984. Now, we have done podcasts on George Orwell's novel to try to show you, I think it must have been 6 months or a year ago, how we're headed for socialism and communism. I know there are people who reject that. I know there are people who think that's some form of return of McCarthyism. But the reality is, it's happening. It was happening when I was telling you that. It may have just happened. So what's this all about? What this is all about is that Biden has put a wackadoodle in charge of censorship. When I say a wackadoodle, I'm going to prove it to you. I don't call people names without proving it to you. And I'm only calling her names because she jeopardizes our democracy. She removes our freedom of speech. This isn't a crime. This is a sin. And this woman does not look like she's working with all her faculties. I'm going to let you judge for yourself. But in any event, she sure as hell is about as close to a communist as you're going to get. And she's going to be as clear as she can be on the hatred that she has for Republicans, for our economy, and by goodness, our form of government. Biden appointed, on the extreme pressure of the New York Times, a minister of disinformation in the Department of Homeland Security. And when you see this woman, if you think she should be in the Department of Homeland Security, wow, please talk to me. Let me help you. I know about security. This woman does not belong in the Department of Security. Maybe she belongs in the Department of Truth in Orwell's dystopian novel, 1984, but not the Department of Disinformation. So, Big Sister here, well, Big Sister is going to decide what is and is not disinformation. Now, I am firmly convinced that the United States Constitution does not allow the government of the United States to decide what is true and what is not true. I believe we were founded as a free country to prevent that, and I believe that Biden is subverting it. Do you know what to call that? Well, I'm not going to call it that. But you know what that is. He is subverting probably our most precious right. Let me digress for a moment. He also attacks freedom of religion and our right to bear arms under the Second Amendment. This means his administration is at war with the First and Second Amendments of the United States Constitution. Fatal war. I don't have to go on, but I can at some point with due process, equal protection, This administration has declared itself an enemy of the Constitution that established this government. This is about as clear as it gets. And for reasons that are sickening, it was recommended by the New York Times. So let me tell you a little briefly, because we've done it in great detail, about Orwell's novel, just so you see the tragic parallels. 1984 was a dystopian novel written by George Orwell, who, although he had been a socialist in his early life, had become a very, very vehement anti-communist because of the excesses of Stalin and the realization he had that socialism and communism ends up in tremendous violence and destruction of people's rights. And we can discuss that in more detail at other times, and we have, as to exactly what is it that's embedded within socialism that causes that violence, because it's right there, right in the middle of it. So when he wrote the novel, he was trying to warn people that England was getting close to that. This is before really the Margaret Thatcher revolution. In fact, around the time the Margaret Thatcher revolution was building, it may, I'm not sure, it may have had something to do with it. And it was written during the Reagan administration, but before Reagan won his victory over the Soviet Union and East Berlin and brought down the Berlin Wall and destroyed the Soviet Union. And I'm not sure that this didn't help. I can't say for sure. But in any event, in the novel, they set up 4 ministries. The main one is the Ministry of Truth. The Ministry of Truth is exactly the opposite of that. It's the ministry of what we would now call fake news. It's the ministry that practices double speak. Double speak means if you say one thing, you mean another. And the main character in the book, Winston Smith, fascinating character, don't know that the movies, there are several, do justice to the book. You have got to read this book, as well as the book I'm going to talk to you about shortly by Douglas Murray. In the book, Winston Smith works for the Ministry of Truth, which means the Ministry of Falsity under utopian or dystopian doublespeak. And he's been there. His job is to vaporize people who no longer 100% support the regime. Now, vaporize is very, very close to what we now call cancel people. I've already done a podcast on that. In fact, it is canceling people. And then to remove as many words from the English language so that we reduce the people's ability to think. And we get them to think what we believe is proper for them to think. And very often they substitute a pornography section for the section on language and reading so that people will no longer expand their vocabulary. The Ministry of Truth, which is what Biden has now set up in the Department of Homeland Security, is an enormous pyramidal structure. It has 300 meters into the air. It has over 3,000 rooms above the ground and 3,000 rooms below the ground. And some of their better slogans for doublespeak and the Ministry of Truth is, war is peace. Freedom is slavery. Might very well describe the plight of African Americans in corrupt urban America, where, example, Chicago, 50 years Democratic rule, wartime murders every weekend, young African American men being slaughtered with African American politicians doing nothing about it for 50 years, except a good many of them becoming rich. Also true of my city, New York, with Charlie Rangel and David Dinkins and Percy Sutton, and Harlem deteriorated. I took over a decrepit Harlem. I changed it. They didn't. All they did is make millions and sell out their people and our people. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. You know, when you live in a neighborhood controlled by a drug dealer who can kill you, as they did when David Dinkins was the mayor, you're not living in freedom. Ignorance is strength. Sound a little like, oh, no. The immigrants coming in are irregular. But why are they irregular? They're irregular because they're illegal, little Red Lion Hood. You want to talk about two candidates for Minister of Disinformation or Minister of Lying, you can look at Little Red Lion Hood and Mayorkas. I mean, I don't know if they've told the truth yet. I don't know. I really don't know. So the main purpose of the book was to warn the English people about the danger of communism. The main purpose I have in life is to warn you of the danger of communism. I want you to go back to last year and my podcast on the express train to Marxism, and how often we showed you how these things, what I'm talking to you about, these things came out of Marxist literature, absolute Marxist literature. So the New York Times, a bit of a while ago, not too long, did an article recommending a reality czar. Isn't it interesting they picked a Russian word? I don't know if Biden was better off using a Orwellian word or a Russian word to describe it, because Orwell was predicting communism, and the czar led to communism, and this is a purely communist idea. Now, not only does he set up this ministry of disinformation, truth, honesty, falsity, fake news, he does it in the Department of Homeland Security. And he puts in charge of it, I mean, you look at this and you tell me if this woman who's going to decide what's true and false, and therefore what you can hear and not hear, you tell me if she's not a wackadoodle. I want to play a few of her performances. This is a woman who told us that there was Russian disinformation. So she's a purveyor of probably the biggest single piece of disinformation in the last 10 years that affected a presidential election and got Biden elected under false pretenses. She defended the 51 intelligence agents who said it was Russian, all of whom never examined it, completely lied. She claims to be a Russian expert, and she got fooled and thought it was Russian information. If you thought that was a Russian information, you should be stricken off the list of Russian experts, because you don't know what the hell you're talking about Russia. I'm a Russian expert. I examined a lot of their intelligence documents in the 1980s. I knew the Steele report didn't come from Russia in one day. 2 facts that lazy, lying Comey didn't check out. Completely blew it. Cohen didn't go to Prague, ever. There is no consul general's office in Miami. doesn't exist. And finally, it was written like a fourth grade version of the National Enquirer, not an intelligence report. Anybody who read that, including my friend John McCain, who was fooled by it, just hated Trump so much. They couldn't use objectivity, common sense, their ordinary intelligence, or their honesty and decency. Sometimes just pick it up and read the first 3 pages and tell me you don't throw it down as a piece of crap. This woman sold that. She sold the disinformation about my being a Russian agent. I don't appreciate that. So the New York Post did a fabulous job in laying this out in 4 pages. I don't know, if we didn't have the New York Post, we might not have a free press. What'd you think of that? Huh? I mean, they're even more consistent than their sister Fox that refuses to talk about a stolen election, or, I don't know what kind of deal they made with Dominion, but so here's an article, not only by our good friend Douglas Murray, but by James Bavard. It begins, is Team Biden no longer even trying to avoid being a laughingstock? Mayorkas announced, remember this agency is under the purview of one of the 2 biggest liars in the administration, Mayorkas, who tells us the border is fine, when we've had 2 years in a row of record fentanyl deaths, which only come over that border. This is a guy who's willing to lie about people dying. So he set up the Disinformation Governance Board. And then he picked Nina Jankowicz to run it. She's a Bryn Mawr graduate. She worked for the Democratic Party all her life. She's basically a left-wing political junkie. She scoffed at the laptop controversy, quote, "We should view it as a Trump campaign product." From Mac Isaacs, who tried to give it to the FBI for 8 months and they ignored it. Then she says, Biden notes 50 NatSoc, national security officials, and 5 former CIA heads that believe the laptop is a Russian influence op. Every single one lying. Every single one who, if they read 2 pages of any of this, would realize that it wasn't. And she never bothered to check it out before she just went ahead and lied. And it questions and destroys her credentials as a Russian agent. They said it could be a Russian plot. These people said. And they offered no proof, but she accepted it, and she sold it because she's a liar. And when you talking about Russian plots, I'm not sure what kind of an American you are, and you lie about that. She never complained when Twitter suppressed every single bit of it from the New York Post. That's not free speech. That's not a whoever said the government's in charge of deciding what's true and false. Do you realize what a violation that is of our basic principles? That the government decides what we can hear and what is true and false. Do you realize what a fascist action that was on the part of the Biden administration, who can't be called fascist because they're loved by our dishonest, biased, and decrepit press? The government is going to decide whether something is disinformation or not. That's not a democracy. That's not a republic. That's a fascist, Nazi, or communist state. I shudder to think about if free speech absolutists were taking over more platforms. free speech absolutists. How about Justice Douglas of the United States Supreme Court? Liberal, without any doubt. He was a free speech absolutist. But what do we forget about him? Ms. Jankowicz, or are you too ignorant to know that from history? One or the other. Think your homeowner's insurance covers home title fraud? Think again. And neither does your common identity theft program. The FBI calls home title fraud one of the fastest growing crimes, which is why you need to go to HomeTitleLock.com, America's leader in home title protection. Here's the problem. The deed to your home is the only document that proves you own it. And the deeds to all of our homes now are online. In minutes, a criminal can find and forge your name off the deed to your home and refile as the new owner. Like Jeff, who spent a fortune in legal fees after a thief forged himself onto the deed to Jeff's home and took out loans. Jeff didn't have home title lock then. He does now. Or Deborah, who thought our common identity theft service would protect her. Then a criminal got onto the deed to a home and had her evicted. Deborah has home title lock now. HomeTitleLock.com is your peace of mind, and the deed to your home is protected. Visit HomeTitleLock.com. HomeTitleLock.com. We're very honored to be joined by Douglas Murray, who has written an excellent book about the problem that we're talking about today, as well as many, many others, and is also a regular writer and columnist for the New York Post. And what we're discussing today is Biden's appointment of a minister of disinformation, a minister of information, a minister of censorship. But this is only part of the problem. And Douglas's book, The War on the West, really puts it in the context of what this is really all about. So let me have him explain, first of all, however you want, why did you write the book, and how does this all fit in? I mean, I think most Americans are shocked now with this. We've never had a minister of information, a minister of disinformation, a minister of... We're a First Amendment loving country. And all of a sudden we have the government deciding, what is disinformation? What is not disinformation? That's not for the government.
Well, as you can tell from my accent, I'm from a country that doesn't have a First Amendment. And I live in America. And one of the greatest attractions of America to me, as to many other free-thinking people, is that this is a country with the First Amendment, with a right to freedom of speech, where government does not tell us things and we simply have to accept what it tells us. But we in America explore ideas, argue things out in the public sphere, and that's how we get to the truth. And that is one of the principles on which America is based. And it is being given up as we speak. Now, the war on the West, as I see it, is very much in the context of this, because what I describe as the war on the West is the war on all of our foundations in the West. And it has been going on for a generation. But as you know, in the last few years, it has sped up with an unbelievable ferocity. In my own country of birth, in Great Britain, we now have the war on British history, where everything in British history is looked at through the lens of slavery, colonialism, racism, where even Winston Churchill, our most distinguished Briton, is now reviled as a racist and much more.
And my personal hero.
Absolutely. The greatest Briton who ever lived. And the fact that he saved the world from Nazi Germany by standing alone in 1939 is not enough when he is accused of racism in the present day. So we have that happen in Britain, but we have the same thing happening in America. And it's America where this all comes from. It's America that is now at war on its founding fathers. As you know, the city I'm sitting in New York, Thomas Jefferson's statue that has been in the council chamber since the 1830s was last November packed up, wheeled out the back door ignominiously, and one of the members of the council said, Thomas Jefferson does not represent our values. Now, if you do this, you war on your founding fathers, you war on the North and the South sides in the Civil War, you war on Abraham Lincoln. When Lincoln's statues are not pulled down by the mobs as they were in Portland, they are removed by the authorities in Boston. You have the New York Times deciding to reframe the founding date of the American Republic so that the American Republic is born in the sin of slavery. You're all told in this country that this country is uniquely evil. There has been an attempt in our lifetimes to turn the story of America into a story of guilt and shame, and it is very successful. And in that context, you come up to the present day where everything from our past has been looked at through this horrible, remorseless light. You see the war that is going on the majority population in America, and then you get the Ministry of Truth. You get the Ministry of Truth that is meant to tell us what is true and what is not, and who is the person nominated by the Biden administration to be the person in charge of the Ministry of Truth, but the person who told the biggest untruths during the 2020 election, in the run-up to the election, when she decided to say that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation.
Well, I happen to be one of the people she accused of that.
Right.
As being a Russian agent. And you probably can't find anyone who's been an enemy of communism more than I have since I was just about born, because my parents were. And I found that I've been accused of many, many things that are false, and they don't bother me. But I found that one to be despicable and disgusting. And she's never apologized. I mean, it's been completely debunked. In their words, their favorite word is debunked. You know, Biden's criminality was debunked. No, it's been proven by the laptop. But these people haven't even had the grace to apologize. Was it 51 of our totally dishonest intelligence officials who said it was Russian disinformation?
One of the most scandalous things of the whole thing, and too little focused upon that.
And they never examined a single thing.
No.
They never examined what the New York Post did. Do you know, when I gave the hard drive to your newspaper, I had already checked it out with 2 different experts for 2 weeks. And I was probably, and your newspaper covered me, the most successful prosecutor in the 20th century. So if I'm going to check something out, it's going to be right. Your newspaper checked it out for another week. You didn't just take it, and then it was censored in a way that has never happened before in American history, ever.
And we see, don't we? You know, we see the direction in which these people will decide to censor in the future. They use terms like disinformation and misinformation, but they're only interested in things that further their own political goals. I mean, they wanted to censor the laptop story because they wanted to get Biden into the White House, obviously. I mean, if they're actually interested in disinformation, why do they never even raise a peep about the New York Times lying about America's history and trying to reframe the founding date of the country? That's a pretty big lie just there. Just there. One of the things we all knew to be true, which was when America was founded, was rewritten by the New York Times non-historians. And I've never seen Jen Psaki or any of the other people interested in this new Ministry of Truth even saying that this is a problem. I would have thought that rewriting the history of America in an entirely negative light was a bit of a problem. But that isn't disinformation. That isn't misinformation. You can lie about American history, and that's all just wonderful.
You know, in your book, you make the point that 1619 makes it appear as if slavery, if it didn't begin in America, was absolutely the worst in America. And then you go back and show that slavery is 2,000 years old, with many worse examples, and existed in every country just about in 1619. There was nothing unique about us.
No. I mean, as I say in the book, at the same time the transatlantic slave trade was going on, about which all American school children are aware, there was a much bigger slave trade of Africans being traded east to Arabia. There were no descendants there, because that was actually a genocidal slave trade in which the Arabs castrated every male African to ensure there wouldn't be another generation. Does 1 in a million Americans know about this? Of course not. Now, here's the thing from that. That's why American history is now described in this remorseless light, because it is told by people who hate America, and it is totally robbed of any context. The thing that made the West remarkable in slavery was not having slavery like every civilization in history had. The remarkable thing about the West is that we did away with slavery, is that the British Navy not only stopped slavery in Britain, but patrolled the high seas at the cost of amazing amount of blood and treasure to stop other countries like Brazil, which continued the slave trade into the 1880s, from being allowed to do it. The remarkable thing about American slavery was that the country almost destroyed itself in the middle of the 19th century by having a civil war that settled the question. So when I hear now people saying in utter ignorance that there are things that we have never addressed in our past, I say, nonsense. We addressed this 200 years ago, bloodily, at great cost. We do not need now, in the 21st century, to be told by hostile people that we should tear open closed wounds.
Now, what you're describing is a game plan that was set forth by Marx, Engels, Lenin, Alinsky, I could go on, for how you take over a country. You get a country to hate itself. You ruin its economy, which we'll talk about some other time, and then you introduce this sort of utopian socialism, which is of course a complete canard, and then you change the form of government. Now, the Biden administration has made it clear it wants to change our form of government and our way of life. So where are we headed? Where are we going? Where are they taking us?
I tell you what I think is happening. I think, and this is what I just tried to describe in the war on the West, is there is a cultural revolution moment that we are in. It is a cultural revolution that is being practiced against America and the rest of the West. And that cultural revolution has to be stopped and turned around. But part of that revolution is, as has always happened in history when people have wanted to conquer another people, the need to tear down all of the holy places of the society. This is why they come for Jefferson and the founding fathers. This is why they come for Lincoln. This is why they come for everything that is good in American history. It is what conquerors have done throughout history. You go into the holy temples of the people you wish to subjugate, and you tear down everything that they find holy and worship. And that is what is happening in the West at the moment. There is an assault on all of our holy places in the hope that a subjugated people and a demoralized people will then accept whatever we are handed next. That is where we say no. You do not have the right to do that. We will not be conquered. We will not be made to submit. We will not be told that we have nothing good about ourselves. We will not have one of the greatest stories of human achievement turned into a story of a crime scene. You will not get away with it.
Well, I was going to ask you a question I'm not going to ask you, which is, what can we do about it? Because I'm going to tell people what to do about it. Read your book. Because actually, you have to know what's happening. And once you know what's happening, the formula for fighting back in a democracy, which we thank God still are, is obvious. We have to organize. We have to believe in what we believe in stronger than they do. We have to realize that we're protecting the future of history, that we're the last great hope for humanity, not China. My goodness, they kill 60 million of their own people. They'll kill 120 million of us. So your book is really, I have to tell you, an excellent, excellent book, but a timely book.
Well, that's very kind of you.
Just at the right time. And I'm going to urge, we're going to put up right now the picture of the book. We'll put up how to get it on Amazon, but you can also get it in your local bookstore. And just get it, read it. And then I want you to communicate with me. My audience is very interreactive. I want you to communicate with me on Rudy Giuliani, commonsense.com. You have a whole section there. You tell me what you think about the book. And then maybe we'll have you on sometime in the future when we have a bunch of questions
I'd love that.
about your book. Because this perspective is so needed. I wake up in the morning, Doug, worried about my country. That is not an exaggeration. That's not a emotional statement. I've never seen this before. So thank you very, very much for your contribution. Also, thank you for the great articles from the Post today on exposing the ministry of disinformation, the ministry of truth, the ministry of censorship, whatever the hell you want to call it. And also, your newspaper deserves the Pulitzer Prize.
Doesn't it just?
For the courage it had to publish that. But you know what? If they accepted it, I would never read them again. Take care, Doug.
It's a great pleasure.
God bless you. Great to talk to you.
And you.
Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code RUDY for these great specials. That's mypillow.com and use the promo code RUDY. Now, let's see if the disinformation expert meaning she gives out disinformation, the left-wing a Democrat hanger-on for years and years, and the person so ignorant that she didn't know that Justice Douglas supported absolutism under the First Amendment. Let's see if she's reformed in any way, so she might be ready for a job that actually shouldn't exist in the United States, which is for a government official to decide what's true and false. She's quoted as saying, "The emails don't need to be altered to be part of an influence campaign. Voters deserve that context, not a fairy tale about a laptop repair shop." Well, it is now proven beyond any doubt, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it's not a fairy tale. Are you going to apologize? Phony? Where's your apology? Where's your apology of accusing people of being Russian agents, including me? Where's your apology, liar? Nowhere, because you are a left-wing liar. Part of an administration of liar after liar after liar, starting at the demented top. And I don't know who's worse, Mayorkas, Little Red Lion Hood, or now you. Not only that, after she tries to say, oh, she was just repeating during the campaign, we go to March 16th, 2021. This is after she's in office. We have a high degree of confidence that the Kremlin used proxies to push influence narratives, including misleading or unsubstantiated claims about President Hunter Biden and President Biden. That's just plainly not true. New York Times says it's not true. Washington Post says it's not true. Where's the apology, liar? How can you have this position? Finally, this wacko Jankovich, I want you to listen to her. I want you to make up your mind. And then I'm going to briefly tell you the law, because this is a travesty under the First Amendment to the Constitution, and it is clearly unconstitutional. But let's listen, and you tell me, am I off when I say she's a wackadoodle? Okay, let's play 2 or 3 of these.
When Rudy Giuliani shared that intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can't cause pain, they're laundering this info when we really should take notes and not support their lies with our wallet choice of votes.
Now we'll go to 2. I want you to write them down. 1, now 2.
Any dope with half a brain can see that humankind has gone insane, to the point where I don't know if I'll accept the status quo if I throw poison in the water main. Listen close to everybody's heart and hear that breaking sound.
And now I want you to email me on Rudy's on I always get this wrong because we used to be this way. Rudy Giuliani CS.com. I'll put it up on the screen there. Rudy Giuliani CS.com. Hit it. Tell me which one is worse. First Amendment of the Constitution says there shall be no law that prohibits freedom of speech. Now, you could say this is not a law. Oh, but it is a regulation that that is only possible based on the sanction of law. In other words, the Department of Homeland Security just can't pass regulations that aren't found in the authorization from Congress. Isn't that right? Even you left-wing lying communist lawyers. The government has no role defining what's true and false. This is a blatant violation of the First Amendment. Goes back to the alien and sedition laws. Now, just to be just to be academic about it, let me point out that the alien and sedition laws were never passed on by the Supreme Court because they basically were out of existence by the time the court acquired the power through John Marshall to declare things unconstitutional. So it's an accident. But maybe one of the great liberal judges of the 20th century wrote as follows in Times Against Sullivan. Although the alien and sedition laws were never, this is quote, never tested in this court, the attack upon its validity has carried the day in the court of history. Now, the sedition law was actually, the sedition part of the sedition was actually struck down in Brandenburg v. Idaho in 1969. Black, Goldberg, and Douglas, 3 of the most liberal members of the court, were in favor of an absolutist First Amendment, which meant even maliciously false information could be published and refuted in the court of public opinion. I think you can carry that too far, but I'm not a left-wing kook job. And these were the heroes of the left-wing kook jobs, particularly Douglas. even more than Brennan. So this is vehemently anti-free speech. It's an attack on free speech. It's one of the worst in America since the Alien and Sedition laws. And it is completely unconstitutional. Please, justices, even you left-wing justices who respect Black and Douglas and Goldberg, be true to the Constitution, huh? You know this is a gross, extremely dangerous violation of free speech. When the government sets up an agency to determine what's true and what's false, if we're not on our way to communism, we may be there. Let me know what you think, huh? And let them know what you think. Let Congress know what you think. But let me know what you would like me to ask Douglas Murray when he's back next time. And ask me what you would like to ask the lawyers that we're going to put on to really analyze in depth, but in a way that you can follow, the constitutionality of this. And beyond that, the incredible destruction this does to our fundamental values. These people, remember I told you 2.5 years ago, want to destroy your form of government, and they want to destroy your way of life. And they want to completely destroy your values and make you an amoral, evil country. And they're doing it. And this is about as clear as it gets. So communicate with Rudy Giuliani, cs.com. There's a space right there for it. Let me know what you think about this. I need your help on this. And our country does. I want to thank Douglas Murray. Very impressive. Get the book. And I want to thank you for giving me your attention. God bless you, and God bless America.